Welcome everyone to the part two of our pod on the Apex 2025 Formula One season predictions. So, yesterday we gave you part one where we kind of had the bottom five teams from last year. We gave a rating to each team, and now we are going to do for the top five, the more, let's say, the more interesting half of the constructors. So, are you ready, Aniket?
Yes, I am very ready. And I'm ready to. I'm so ready that the fire lights should go out right now.
Yeah, testing is done. We have a short 2 week wait to the start of the season. We just can't wait. Okay,
Yep.
so
And
yeah,
and it's a good time to discuss the five kind of top teams
yeah,
and set off, lay off the groundwork for our viewership and viewers and audience, so they understand this is probably going to be the top five teams which are going to feature in this upcoming season as well.
yeah. And obviously, there can be hot takes where one of the teams in this top five may not be in our final top five.
Yep.
But yeah, let's see. So I'm sharing our ratings to the screen now. So number five from last year was Aston Martin. Aston Martin is a team, again, a British based team. They've had a, you know, kind of not a very long history, but I would say, I mean, the F1 website says they started in 2018, which is kind of incorrect. It was from the ashes of Force India, and Force India itself has a long history, right? So, yeah,
Yeah.
not a new team at all to F1. They're going the same driver lineup this year of Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll.
Yeah.
So obviously the question
Yeah.
is why Lance Stroll? um, but yeah,
Why Lance Stroll? Because we know who owns the team.
exactly. But yeah, I think um, I think I'm going to go with my second hot take of this, Aniket. Yesterday was my first hot take where I ranked Sauber above Alpine because of,
Yeah.
even though they had a decent testing, because of the driver shenanigans which are certain to blow up. And yeah, for Aston Martin, I think, I don't know, man. I'm going to rate them. Let's say I want to rate them below Williams, and but I think they'll still beat Haas. So I'm going to say 6.3. Just to keep it in between them. What about you, Aniket?
Yeah. So obviously they did not have a good last season, right? They started off 2020. I mean, if you're looking for a time period of how Aston Martin has been over the last couple of seasons, 2023 very well.
Yeah,
I mean, they started off so well that they were, in contention
they're
for
on the
podiums
podiums.
regularly in the first half. Yeah, first half of the season, but then second half they faded away, a little bit once the top team started accelerating. And last season they were absolutely nowhere. Fernando Alonso kept on complaining throughout the races on the radio, saying how bad the car was to drive, and also Lance Stroll didn't fare well either. So, in an ideal scenario, they should be considered as a bottom team compared to one with the top teams, but I still feel with the addition of Adrian Newey now, there could be some upliftment and some positivity in that team, which will help them in the season. So, so this is their last season with Mercedes engines before becoming a full Honda Works partnership team. So I believe that this season again is a foundation more towards next season rather than their focus on the season being very high.
Yeah,
Nonetheless, Adrian Newey is in town, so I believe that they will still be better than last season. I think Lawrence Stroll is probably a person who would not like to have multiple seasons of failure in terms of results. And also, you have Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso, two drivers who may or may not continue in F1 beyond the next season. So there could be a whole new Aston Martin lineup next season, or there could be one of the drivers being changed at the end of the season. So a lot to lot to unpack from this team as we monitor their progress throughout the season. So I'll go with a 6 for Aston Martin based on what they performed last season and how they are coming to the season as a relative unknown as
Okay.
well. So
So you're
yeah,
saying you're also saying they'll be below Williamson.
yeah, I'm saying they'll be below Williams because I think Williams have the better drivers right now as well as a
Yeah.
more kind of a continuity. I mean, I like to believe that Aiden Newey has an immediate impact on this team, but I'll probably wait to see it.
Yeah. I think to be fair, I think Newey's impact will be felt more next season. I mean, right
Yeah,
in the car is pretty much set, right? It's not like New can significantly change the aero makeup of the car. So,
yeah.
yeah, if I had to ask you to kind of, disambiguate Haas and Aston Martin because you gave the same score to both, who would you put
Hmm.
higher? Would you change one of the two scores to kind of avoid the tie?
I think it's close to call. I mean, I would say I would still give to Aston Martin because I think Fernando Alonso is probably the best driver among the four drivers. If you compare
Okay.
the two teams, so that's the reason I'll give it to Aston Martin.
Okay.
But it's pretty close between Aston Martin and Haas, and it could be pretty close throughout the course of the season.
Right. Hmm. Okay. Cool. So same score then, 6.
Yep.
All right. Um, Next up is number 4 from last year, Aniket's former team, Mercedes.
It's like I worked for them.
Well, okay, Aniket's former team that he used to support. There you go. But yeah,
Yep.
Mercedes again. They've been in the sport for a while under various different names. Um, they were most recently, before being the Mercedes Works team, they were Braun GP, and before that they were Honda, and yeah, a bunch of other names. Going right back to the 70s, and they have won. If you count, all their previous ownerships and name changes, yeah, they used to be a middling team before they became Mercedes and the juggernaut that they became, winning 8 constructor titles on the trot. 6 with Lewis, 1 with Nico, and 1 in the year Max Verstappen won his first title. So, yeah, very successful team in the modern era, Mercedes. And this year they have one new driver, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, and George Russell obviously continuing from last year. And we know why that
Yeah.
happened because Lewis Hamilton decided to move to Ferrari. So that obviously opened up the opportunity for Kimi Antonelli, who is a rookie, very, very new rookie. I think he was in F2 last year, right? Already was in F3.
It was an F2.
Yeah, he was in F2 last year, but again, didn't have too great a season. But again, I mean, even Max Verstappen didn't have a spectacular F2 or F3 seasons. But Toto Wolff
Mm.
is very, very optimistic about Kimi. I mean, he's being touted as the next Max Verstappen. So,
Yeah.
Aniket, the floor is yours. Where do you put Mercedes? Keep in mind, they look good in testing as well. Maybe because Bahrain was a bit cooler, but yeah, nevertheless,
Yeah.
they look good
Then
in testing.
generally Mercedes do well on cooler conditions. But before I answer, just one correction, Pratyush, on what you said. So Mercedes was, I think the first season was in 1950 or something like that. Then they were the Mercedes team in the 50s, and then they returned with McLaren as a works team, like McLaren Mercedes, and then they brought out Braun in 2010, and then they returned to F1 as a full works team and not a supplier engine works partnership. So uh, just that's the history, and just
Yeah.
continuing on what you said. Uh, as you said, they have a long history and also now a recent history where they've been very successful up until the new regulations from 2022 onwards.
Mm.
So again, now this is going to be challenging season for them. They have a completely new driver partnership with George Russell now being the lead driver and Kimi Antonelli being the rookie on trot. So I would say that Lewis Hamilton's absence definitely will hit the team. It's going to take some time for them to recover in terms of their outlook as well as how they devote the resources between Kimi Antonelli and George Russell. In this early part of the season, but it could also spin up as a positive for them because now there is the weight of Lewis Hamilton is no more on their shoulders because Lewis Hamilton, multiple time world champion, no more in their team. So the weight is a little bit off their shoulders. They don't need to be, or they don't need to be like a very, I would say, a very a team under pressure as such, because when you have a championship driver or a former world the drivers championship winner in your team, you always have to deliver a car that is up to that benchmark. But now they don't have one, so they can probably take this season again to build towards 2026. We are still hearing 2026 could be the way 2014 started, where Mercedes engines were absolutely dominant,
Yeah.
and that's what Mercedes also will be hoping for. So after a wretched, I would say a wretched couple of seasons where they've been on and off in races, cool weather, suited them, hot weather did not suit them. I think the weight of not having Lewis Hamilton and being a little bit stress free in that terms will allow Mercedes to perform better as a team. I believe they might definitely feel his absence, but again, I would probably think they do better than last season. So maybe I'll give them a 7 on 10. To begin the season, I
Mm.
think that they will be in the running to win races this year. Maybe not immediately, but maybe towards the second half of the season. And in the first half, they'll be in it with Red Bull, Ferrari, maybe McLaren, to compete for say top five, top seven positioning.
So you're saying they're going to be as good as Williams? I mean, Williams will be as good as Mercedes? I mean, you're giving them the same scores. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon are very very good drivers, and I
yeah.
feel Kimi Antonelli. I'm not sure if he's really gonna crack it into the top five, top 10 every race to begin the season, and that's the
Yeah.
reason why I'm giving them a 7. I
Okay.
mean, if it was Lewis Hamilton, probably I would give them an 8.
Hmm.
But since it's a rookie, I feel that 7 is kind of right on the line, because we don't know how this rookie will perform
Right. Okay.
uh,
Fair enough.
unless we see him in the first few races.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I think for me, similar thing. I think I'll go with the 7, mainly because, I mean, they have a very good driver in George Russell, despite what I think about him. Uh, um, yeah, I think this will be the first real test for George Russell, personally. Can he lead the team into the new era, right?
Yeah.
Last year we saw, obviously, he was technically outpacing Lewis Hamilton, but again, we do know that Mercedes was experimenting a lot with Lewis's setup and his car, and giving the preference to George Russell. I mean, which is fair because Lewis was leaving. But so I don't think we can read too much into last season if George can lead the team. Obviously, the team was still benefiting from Lewis's wealth of experience and all of that. And
Mm,
this year, he has to be the senior guy. He has to, mentor Kimi Antonelli. He has to lead the team. Be much more, forthcoming with technical feedback and all those kind of things. Which
mm,
maybe last year, he could have played second fiddle to Lewis. I don't know if he did, or if it was better. But I mean, Lewis
mm.
obviously overshadows you when you're his teammate,
Yeah.
especially when you're George Russell. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's going to be an important season for Mercedes and George Russell to see if he can lead them into a new era.
Mm. I agree.
And yeah, I think if Toto doesn't like what he see, he'll start flirting with Max Verstappen again.
Yeah, that's a very good possibility that could happen.
Yeah, we saw. I mean, we saw Toto openly flirt with Max Verstappen last year as well. So yeah, I think I'll go with the 7 as well. But yeah, I
Mm.
think me personally, I feel that they still will be, at least better than Williams. I feel. I think the car is just better than Williams. So
Yeah.
despite having a rookie, I feel they still will be good.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's Mercedes. And
Yeah. And just for our podcast
mm,
listeners, obviously you're not able to see the ratings which we are doing, but we'll put up the entire chart on our Instagram page, on our X page, once we
yeah,
fill it up with this after these next three teams. So yeah. You can catch us there, follow us there as well, and keep up to date with our latest episodes.
Yes, totally. Thanks, Aniket. And now we move on to the top three. We're getting to the business end of the rankings now. Top three from last year: Red Bull Racing, Ferrari, and McLaren. And let's start with Red Bull Racing. This is a team that needs no introduction. And yeah, I mean, technically, they're also through the chains of ownerships. They've been in the sport since the 90s. But under the name Red Bull, they've been in the sport since what, 2006, I think? 2005,
Six,
2006? Yeah,
five, five, then five.
2005, right. And yeah, in their Red Bull form, they've been a very, very dominant team. They they won four titles with Max Verstappen from 2010 to 2013. And then,
Not
of
Max
course,
Verstappen, Sebastian Vettel.
sorry, what am I saying? They won four titles with Sebastian Vettel. They won four titles with Sebastian Vettel when you know Vettel was the dominant force in the sport, and then of course after that Mercedes had their 8 year domination. But after Lewis won his seventh title, Red Bull still again won four consecutive drivers' titles with Max Verstappen. Even the two of the constructors they lost out to Mercedes initially and then to McLaren last year. They still won four more drivers' titles with Max Verstappen. So yeah, a very dominant team. You underestimate Red Bull at your own peril. And this year, they're obviously continuing with Max Verstappen, but they have for the second driver after they fired Sergio Perez, they're going to have a new driver, Liam Lawson, who drove a few races for Alpha Tauri or Racing Bulls last year and also the year before. The year before, only I think only drove a couple of races or like three races something when Ricardo was injured. And then last year, after Ricardo was fired, he drove like what, seven, eight races. So, not, yeah, he's not a rookie in the sense that he has had a few races, but he's going to be his first full season in F1, and he's also going to race for the senior Red Bull team, which is, yeah, it's going to be quite a jump. And yeah, they're led by Christian Horner and Pierre Vache is the technical director. And I think Red Bull, yeah, they didn't have the best time in testing, but I mean, we all know what Max Verstappen is capable of. He outdrives the car, he outdrives everyone, right? Max Verstappen is just that kind of force who will, you know, make the car do things other drivers can't think of. But yeah, I mean, we also did see Red Bull not being too happy with the car, and I think they also had the least number of laps in testing over the 3 days. So not sure what's going on. They had a
Hmm.
curtail session today as well. I think today or
Yeah.
tomorrow. Today, yesterday, yeah, one of the few days they had a short session as well. So yeah, I am honestly confused. Where I think they're definitely going to be. They probably will be better than Mercedes just because of Max Verstappen. He's that kind of a driver. I don't think George Russell has is like Verstappen. So I think, yeah, I think I'll be tentative and give them a 7.5 to Red Bull. What about you, Aniket?
Yeah, I was going to say exactly the same rating. I think you summarized them very well in terms of how what they've been up to in the last few seasons, winning championships, and Max Verstappen being at the top of the world, probably the best driver in F1 at this point. So I think with Liam Lawson coming in, obviously there's going to be a lot of pressure on them, in terms of the constructors championship. Again, they might not be one of the favorites for that. But definitely, whenever they have Max Verstappen, till they have Max Verstappen, they'll always be a front runner for the drivers' championship. And the car under Max Verstappen is different compared to the car under any other secondary Red Bull driver.
Yeah.
So we know that Max Verstappen takes that car to another level, and we saw that in Brazil last year, where he had no business winning that race, but he
Oh
came all the
yes.
way back and won that race. So
Yeah.
we never want to discount Max Verstappen. As much as I don't like him as a person and don't like the driver, we respect his talent, and we respect what he can do to take the team to another level. So as long as he's there, Red Bull will always be in the top in the conversation for the top of the podium. So I think 7.5 is pretty fair. They'll be just ahead of Mercedes, but they might be a little behind Ferrari and McLaren as we move towards talking about these two
Yeah.
teams, the top two teams from last season.
Yeah, that's fair. I think, yeah, they might not be the outright favorites this year, but I think they're like the dark horse. Yeah, I think Max Verstappen, he can still make them win a title. If he has a
Yeah,
decent car, he'll just outdrive it beyond Ferraris and McLarens. So yeah, 7.5. Now we move on to Ferrari. Ferrari, obviously the most decorated and the oldest team in the sport. They have raced in every season since the very first in 1950. Yeah, it's really the team that needs no introduction. They have won 249 races in F1. They have 16 constructor titles. I think somewhere similar in drivers' titles as well. They obviously had this dominant era in the early 2000s when Michael Schumacher won five back-to-back titles with them. But yeah, Ferrari really, they're led by Frederic Vasseur, who replaced current Sauber principal Matteo Binotto a couple of seasons ago. And they do have one new driver this year. Um, so
and
I
a new
was,
fan.
and a new fan, yes, a lot of new fans actually.
A lot of new fans. The entire army is coming.
Yeah. So Charles Leclerc obviously is continuing on from last year, and then Ferrari made the decision early last season, actually before the season started, to sign Lewis Hamilton for this year on a multi-year contract. So yeah, Ferrari
Yeah,
probably have like the most exciting driver lineup in Charles
strongest
Leclerc.
driver lineup.
Yeah, easily Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, two you know extremely good drivers. I mean, Lewis Hamilton obviously is in the GOAT conversation, um, as one of two drivers has won seven titles and outright owns a lot of other records in the sport. And Charles Leclerc is obviously, he's a prince of Ferrari. He has been with Ferrari since he was a kid. He's been their academy driver. He's a face of the team from a while now, and he has been in the sport for a few years in F1. He started with the Sauber team, or back then what was called Alfa Romeo. Alfa Romeo Sauber.
Yeah.
He raced with them for a season before replacing Kimi Raikkonen at Ferrari. And yeah, I think by far the most exciting driver lineup. So strong that they might end up fighting each other. Uh, and yeah, I think the sport has a lot of history when a team has two very strong drivers and a strong car. Things don't go down well. So yeah, I think they obviously seem to have a strong car as well, from testing, and expectations are high. Ferrari is always a team with high expectations. So yeah, where do you see them, Aniket? What's your take on Ferrari this season?
Yeah, I mean, as a new Ferrari fan, I would love to think that they are going to be on the top of the world at the end of the season. But again, it's too early to make that conclusion based on just 3 days of testing, and also we did get to see Lewis Hamilton for the first time, in Bahrain driving a Ferrari in testing. But on the last year of the session, I think was only able to manage 41 laps before the team pulled him in due to some issues.
Yeah, they
So
didn't
it
say
was
what.
not the smoothest end to the testing session for them. They compared to the other teams, they didn't do as many laps as well. So it's kind of an unknown as to where they are right now. I mean, just like everybody else, but they did look good on single lap in day two. I think Lewis pumped in the fastest lap on that day. But again, we don't know what fuel loads the other teams were on, what fuel loads Ferrari was on.
Yeah,
So, but there is a general consensus that this car is good. It might not be on par with the team which we're going to discuss next,
Yeah.
but it could be very well the second best to start the season. So that is a good, I would say, a good bench, or not a benchmark. I would say a good way to start the season for Ferrari and then take it from there, and so that they don't have a lot of catch up, from the beginning itself. So as long as they are in the hunt for the podium in the first couple of races and the upgrades they bring work, I think they're going to be in for a long championship fight with the McLaren team, who are going to discuss after this. So I think there are going to be a lot of positive days for Ferrari this season. Lewis and Charles both will have exceptional drives throughout the course of the season. They'll have their own battles. They'll battle other teams as well.
Hmm.
So it's going to be fun to see. It's going to be an exciting season for Ferrari fans because this is a driver pairing like no other. And yeah, I think there's a lot of positive things at this point. So I would probably give them an 8.5 to start
Okay.
this year. So that would put them ahead of all the other teams so far, which we discussed, and
Yeah.
probably the second best team uh, to
Hmm.
start the season. So I just want to speak positive about them. We'll see what happens. Ferrari always known to disappoint, whether it be in pit stops, whether it be in mismanagement of races. So we'll get to that later when we do our actual race debriefs if something like that happen. But for now, things seem positive in the Ferrari camp. They seem energized after Lewis Hamilton's arrival, and yeah, we'll see how they fare in the season.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah. Ferrari. Well, I've been a Ferrari fan from more than 2 decades now. This is my third decade of supporting Ferrari. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I definitely think they'll probably be better than Red Bull like last season.
Yeah,
At least in the constructors, right? Obviously, the drivers, Max Verstappen he's the unknown over there. But yeah, I think Ferrari. I mean, yeah, they do have the strongest lineup on the grid, but these are also two drivers that you know are ultra competitive, right? They're not going to show any mercy on their teammates. It's not like one of them is a Valtteri Bottas or Rubens Barrichello will be like, okay, fine, I am second best. I will step aside because you are whoever you are, right? So yeah, I think I'll give them an 8. I would rate them higher, but I think you know their lineup is so good that it could be to their detriment. Um, 'cause- yeah, and Ferrari has not had a good history when they've had two strong drivers. So
Hmm.
yeah, I'm honestly not sure. I mean, especially when we saw in 2019 when we
Hmm.
had, was it 2019? Yeah, when we had Vettel and Leclerc, that didn't go down
Yeah,
well. And Leclerc was back then a much more junior driver. He was in his second season in the sport, right? And yet we saw them, go at each other, and they really had loggerheads with each other, and they even crashed into each other towards the end of the season. Where was that? Was it in Austin or Singapore or
Brazil. I
somewhere?
was in Brazil.
Brazil, yeah. They
Yeah,
really just banged into each other. And yeah, Charles is now much more senior driver. He's in his what, seventh season with Ferrari, eighth season in the sport. He's a much more experienced driver. Obviously, he himself feels he deserves to win the title for himself, and Lewis obviously wants to get that eighth title and cement his status as the greatest of all time. So yeah, that's why I'm going to dock maybe a little for Ferrari. I think their driver
for being
lineup,
too good.
yeah, for being too good. Basically, I mean, it's still a team sport, and you don't want. Historically, we've seen teams be the most successful when they have a clear number one and number two, and
Yeah, but I
yeah,
think both drivers are pretty mature enough to be in that, or have that sense wherein if one is competing for the championship and the other is not, then they should probably back the other driver for the
yes,
championship. So
in
they
that
are at this
case,
point in their careers
yeah, I
that
think
that
in
that,
that
that
case
will
they
happen.
would. Yeah, I think if there
Yeah,
was a clear kind of pecking order, they would back down. But let's say, at the summer break, Lewis and Charles are neck to neck, right? Let's say each has
Mm,
won, I don't know, 2 or 3 races each. Similar number of
mm,
podiums. They're like, I don't know, 10 points apart in the championship. I'm not saying who's ahead, but let's say they're like 10 points or 15 points apart in the championship, or even 20 points apart in the championship. And let's say they're
mm,
1 and 2 or 1 and 3 or something, right? Yeah, I
mm.
think they're not going to back down. Neither Lewis nor
Yeah,
Charles. I mean, they both are too good to back down from a fight. And we also saw in 2016 what happened, right? The famous season. So
yeah,
yeah, yeah, we'll see. I think it's still going to be an exciting season for Ferrari. Well, yeah, we'll see at the halfway point how excited I am, or if the drivers are fighting so much that I'm just depressed again, despite the car being good. It's always
yep,
something with Ferrari. They always have the most amount of drama. But yeah, so I think now we are at the last team, McLaren. McLaren, um, another kind of long running team in the sport. They've been in the sport since 1966. They have won multiple titles. They have a very rich history of winning races, winning constructors titles, drivers titles. Right
yeah,
now they're led by Andrea Stella. They're in that papaya era, having the car being orange for the past few years now. And they've had a tumultuous time in the last decade, McLaren, especially after Lewis left, Ron Dennis left, the team
yeah.
kind of fell apart. And then, they left Mercedes as well. They went to Honda. They didn't have a good time with Honda. Then they went to Renault, didn't have a good time with Renault. And finally came back to Mercedes, and they seem to have found their stride now. They're two very good drivers, and yeah, they're I think one of the few teams this season to continue with the same driver lineup um, of last year. I think the only other team is Aston Martin.
Yeah,
Yeah, one of two
that's a
teams
good
this
point.
year to continue with the same driver lineup. And obviously, Lando and Oscar are two very good drivers, as you've seen last year. Both are capable of winning, but and we have seen McLaren has the strongest car in testing on. I think in long race runs they had by far the best car. Um, I think McLaren is going to have a similar problem as Ferrari, where like obviously they're not. There's no Lewis Hamilton on the team, but I think those two drivers are very good. And we saw last year neither driver wants to be the number two. We saw it very clearly in multiple races. So I think they're going to have a similar problem as Ferrari, where the drivers are too good, and the car is obviously going to be very strong. And Oscar is going to be his what, third season this year, third or fourth, third, right?
Yeah, I think third season.
Yeah, I think Oscar obviously is he's a much more experienced driver this season. He's going to mature as a driver. He probably won't make the same mistakes as last year. Towards the end of the season, he kind of dropped off, and Lando was like a clear number one in the team. But I think this year is going to be much closer, and we'll probably see, you know, if the car is actually that good. Yeah, McLaren might be the 2016 Mercedes here. So I wanted to give them a 9.5, but because their car is so good, the drivers are good, everything is good. But I'm going to dock a lot of points. I think going to put them at 8.5 because from what I saw last season, yeah, I mean, I think even more than Ferrari because McLaren, this team is like easily probably the best team on the grid. Yeah, I think we're going to see a much heavier slice of infighting. Oscar is not going to be, as complacent as last season or as rookie like as last season. So yeah, but I think they'll still be the best team in the grid. But I think,
Yeah,
I think that infighting will be increased this year. What do you think, Aniket?
yeah, I agree with all your points. Like, they have the best car on the grid. Testing also proved that. A lot of people are saying they could be up by a couple of tenths on the other teams.
Yeah.
So that is a little scary, because we thought that teams will be very close this season. So they've got a good car. They have two very good drivers, and who I believe both can compete for the championship, because Oscar is also that good a driver. So I don't think. I mean, after last year, where things cooled off between Oscar and Lando as the season gradually, ended for them in terms of the drivers' championship, but we should respect them as the constructors' championship, which I still feel that they are favorites this season as well. So just taking last year into account and taking the way that they've gone about their duties in testing, I feel that they deserve a 9.0 or a 9 rating, to
Yeah.
start this season. I think both the drivers have showed that the car is very good. The team is, team has a lot of confidence after last year constructors championship, and they're gunning for more. They are, as you said, they have had a tumultuous last decade
Hmm.
with the whole Honda thing, and then the whole management issue with Ron Dennis leaving and Zach Brown coming in. But things have stabilized so much since then. Andrea Stella is like the perfect team principal for them, and they have two drivers who could probably be there for the next 5 to 7 years in that team. So they look very stable. The car is very good, and this is probably the last chance to get a drivers' championship before who knows what will happen when the new regulations kick in. So I think they're going to give it all, and they're going to be the favorite until somebody tells me that and some developments have, say, put Ferrari on top or Red Bull on top or whatever.
Right.
So McLaren is a team to beat this season.
Yeah, fair enough. So those are our scores, and I'll quickly, I'll take this off the stream, the screen share, and I'll quickly, order the teams based on scores. But while I do that, um, yeah, before I do that, Aniket, I just have one question for you because you have Mercedes and Williams at the same score.
Hmm.
Who would you put ahead, Mercedes or
I'll
Williams?
probably put Mercedes ahead
Okay,
for now.
cool.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, so while I quickly, put the rankings over here, Aniket. So I think we both agree, kind of, that Ferrari, no, sorry, not Ferrari, McLaren is going to be the constructors champion this year. But my question to you is, who's going to be the driver's title winner?
I think if Lando definitely improves some last year, improves his starts and all that, so Lando is my pick to win the Drivers' Championship because McLaren won't be starting the season again on a deficit like they were last year when they had to crawl back from like 80 to a 90-point deficit.
Hmm.
Uh, so I think this season could be the reversal of tales, wherein they could actually have that bigger deficit or that big a margin, after 4 to 5 races because of how good their car is.
Yeah.
So based on all the indications on testing, I feel that Lando Norris could be the man that we're going to talk about at the end of the season. So definitely he could be in with a shout, to win the championship.
Hmm.
I wouldn't put my entire money on it, but have a
Okay.
feeling that yeah, I have a feeling that if the car is that good, then definitely one of
Yeah.
Lando or Oscar. And right now, I would put Lando just as Oscar to win the drivers' title.
Hmm. Okay. So you're saying Landon Norris will probably be the drivers'
Will probably
championship,
get his first drivers' championship,
first drivers' championship. All
which I
right.
never thought I would be saying.
Wow. Yeah. Um, I think, yeah, I want to go with Lando, but I think Oscar will give him too much of a fight. So I think, I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously, we don't know how the season will pan out, but what I feel is that those two will, fight each other a little too much. And we also, and yeah, I mean, we don't know if um, Lando has, exercised his demons of starting poorly when on pole.
Hmm.
Like we saw multiple times last
True.
year, Lando qualifies on pole and then just loses a couple of spots at the start. Um, but yeah, I think I don't know. It feels dirty to say this as a Ferrari fan, but I think we'll see Max Verstappen
Again,
again. Yeah, I think I don't know, man. That guy, he's just such a crazy guy when he drives that car. I don't mean his unsavory antics. I don't mean those part, but I think the way he just outdrives the car, right? I think um yeah, I think I personally feel it's going to be a fight between Max and Lewis. I think we're going to see a repeat of 2021. Um
Oh, that would be amazing if that happens.
because I think Lewis definitely has a point to prove since after coming to Ferrari. And even though Charles, is probably my favorite driver, I would, really like Charles to win a title. But honestly, I mean, I'll be the happiest man if he proves me wrong. But yeah, I think Lewis will have that higher killer instinct this season. And obviously, we know Max is Max, right? He's obviously always going to go for the kill. Um, yeah, and we did see Red Bull get better towards the end of last season. Max was winning races again, which kind of totally snuffed the joy out of McLaren towards the end of the season. So I think we'll probably see Max win. And even though the reason I say Max will win, and even though I'm predicting a Max Lewis rivalry again, is because it's Ferrari. I don't trust the
Hmm.
team at all. So yeah, I
Yeah,
think my pick is going to be Max Verstappen for the driver's title. Even though it really
yeah,
pains me as a Ferrari fan.
and I hope that doesn't really happen.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't happen, but I hope it's one of Lewis or Charles. I really don't care who it is, but
Yeah, I agree.
yeah. And with that, let's share our constructors rankings. So yeah, I know you can see this, Aniket. Let me share it to the stream as well. There you go. So yeah, I think we kind of have the similar ranking, except we switched Sauber and Alpine. Um,
Yeah,
I think
doesn't
even though
seem like there are any
scores are
surprises here.
yeah, even though scores are different, I think our rankings are pretty similar.
Yep. And I feel that this is something which could probably chop and change, or I would say shuffle as the season goes on based on what kind of updates the team does. So we'll probably review this at the halfway mark and see what kind of order it is following, to see if we have made a mockery of ourselves, or to see if we're actually experts in I would say analyzing F1 cars and stuff. So we'll
Yeah,
we'll see
yeah.
how that pans out, and yeah, we'll keep a close eye on this.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would probably say that putting Williams or Aston Martin is probably a hot take. Even though Williams had looked strong in testing, Carlos Sainz
Yeah,
was the fastest on day two in single lap pace. But yeah, there's definitely, yeah, there are some changes from last year, definitely in this ranking. So yeah, I think we should probably in the summer break do a review, right? Uh,
we will. Yep,
we will do a mid-season review and see where our takes landed.
I agree, and yeah, and we'll see how it goes. Maybe we are good, maybe we are not. But
Yeah.
and to all the viewers watching, please put in your takes as well, and we'll be happy to put them on our episode the next time and see how it compares against ours. So that'll be a fun exercise to do as well.
Yeah. Feel
But
free to leave your takes in the YouTube comments or just mention us on X or Instagram comments or
yeah,
threads or Facebook. Wherever, man. Like we are everywhere. Or even send us an email. Like our podcast page has that email listed. So you can just
yep.
send us an email too. Even a YouTube channel has an email listed. So yeah. Any way to get you can send us your takes and we will feature it on the channel like Aniket said.
Yeah, and I think that concludes our F1 rankings. That towards as we head into the season opener in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So I think the next time me and Pratyush see you, it's going to be previewing the season opener in Australia.
Yeah, I think
And
we can. Yeah, but I think we can also do um, a testing review probably midweek, and let our viewers know how what we saw in testing. We really didn't go too deep into that. Yeah, before we
yeah,
do
I
season
think we could
preview.
probably do that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we still have 2 weeks, so we can do a testing review this week.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think if that's something that'll bring more excitement as the
Yeah.
season draws forward or draws to a beginning. I think that'll be even more exciting for us as well as for the viewers watching. So probably we'll be doing that, I guess, in this next week, and maybe then move on to the Australian Grand Prix
Yeah.
preview.
Man, it
And
doesn't it feel nice to say the first race is the Australian Grand Prix? It's like such a
it
throwback.
does, it does. So until the next time, we are Pod on the Apex. Follow us on every social media outlet which you have. We are everywhere, as Pratyush said.
Yep.
And we look forward to hearing from you. Look forward to reading your comments wherever they come from.
Yep. We'll catch you next time. See you, folks.